You need username and password to connect to the target application, right? And the URL. So these three are the mandatory fields which you have to provide. And after establishing the connection, you can see certain options here. So not all these options are used to import user. The same connection is used for application onboarding as well. That is to connect to other target application and do provisioning and deprovisioning. So for to import users, we need only certain attributes. We don't need all these attributes. So we'll cover the attributes which you need for uh, to import users. The first is the search filter. The search filter basically specifies from where to start looking for the application. Different auth source have different attributes. So we are just taking the example of AD as of now. So we have to tell you the starting point of from where we have to actually start pulling in the data. So you can see the description also says a similar thing. Search filter can be used to specify the starting point of the directory from where data needs to be imported. Okay, so there's something which the client will tell you. So once you start working on any engagement, you'll have the access to the backend system, and you can actually play around and understand. So usually it's something like DC Savior, DC Corp. There's something the starting point. There's something which you'll work with your client for whom you're implementing, or with the organization who has the active directory system, and then you can actually populate this field. Next is the object filter. Object filter used to pull in certain specific values. For example, if you think about all the users at the auth source, we can have all the users who are employees, who can be contractor. These are the some examples. So what if I just want to pull in the contractors? I don't want to pull in the employee data as if now, or I want to pull in the employee data, but I don't want to pull in the contractor. So there's something which we specify here. Okay, that it will pull in whatever we mention or whatever we want here. Okay, there's something which we do here. We specify the object filter. After that, don't worry about these options. These are actually not needed. The next attribute is used in the user attribute. So what is user attribute? So let me see an example. As I was talking last time also, right? That the attribute in which value is stored at the end application could be different from the attribute name in Saviynt, right? If you look at the Saviynt, I'm just using any user. Don't worry about it. How it came, I'll tell you how it came. So if you look at any user, if I go here, if I click here, logged, yeah, let me log in. So if I go here, admin, let me open any user, and then we'll be able to see the. We have connection here. Connection, getting new connection. Okay, so if you look at the user, we have this is any user, and that's how the user will look after it get created. It has certain attributes, right? First name, last name, middle name, organization name, display name, username. So the way we store data in Saviynt, the name or the identifier we use can be different from what we have in the backend system. For example, Saviynt store country in country, but in AD it is stored as C. The attribute C specifies country. For example, another example could be attribute email stores the value of email, but at AD it is specified as mail. So we have to specify these certain things as in which value to take from the target application, and how to do the mapping at the Saviynt level in which attribute to store that value, right? Because otherwise it will not know itself, right? Another example could be employee type. For example, here I want to use a custom property, which is not specified to certain value, but it's the Saviynt provides certain custom property so that we can store it for as per our convenience. And this is a type of employee, for example. Oh, sorry, employee code. Let's say employee code. EMP code is used to store that value. So we have to specify these things, right? And this is something which we do at the which we do here, which is specify in the user attribute. So there's something which we specify here, and let me, where was it? Yeah, user attribute. So how we store value, you can see from the examples itself, that is how we store the value here. So let's take a couple of example and let's see how to store the value here. So this is how the values are stored, and yeah. So you can see here, right? And so this is the format. Display name actually is the Saviynt attribute. Okay. Display, this is the second one after two colon. Second one is the target application value, and third is the data type. So this is how we store the value. And certain example could be email, which is the Saviynt attribute, colon, mail, which is the Active Directory attribute in which the mail is stored, and thus the data type is string. So this is how we do the specify the mapping here. So how this will read, Saviynt will read is display name, which is the end attribute value, and which is type of string type, map it to the display name attribute in the Saviynt. So that's how the mapping is done. So don't worry about default SAV role. You have to specify what kind of default user role you want to give the person. You can specify the different type of role that you want to give it to the here. You can want to give, so what this means is whenever new user is created, what kind of role that person will get. Usually we give it a user type of role. We can give manager, we can give certain roles based on that SAV rules, which will allow that person to access different module in the Saviynt. So there's something which we specify here. And rest options, don't worry, these are used for different kind of operations. So that's about it. After coming here, you can come and save the save the connection, and it will be saved here. So this is something which we do for importing user. So the first thing is what we have to do is specify the, after filling all these mandatory fields, specify the URL and password and username. After that, search filter, object filter in case of AD, and then user attribute mapping, as in how to do the mapping. Okay. And then default SAV role, these are certain values and which will be specified. So now the connection has been established, and we have established what to do with different attributes. Now the first thing will be to pull in all those values. So how can we pull this value? How will Saviynt know when to actually pull in all these values? For that, we have jobs here. So jobs are nothing but jobs are basically used to execute any function within Saviynt, right? So this comes under job control panel, and the job control panel has the task of pulling in, or the job control panel will specify what actions to take at what point of time. So you can do certain options, don't worry about it because it's a very comprehensive list, and these are the various options, don't worry about it, we'll cover everything. Analytics is for running the analytics. Database is to pull in data from your database. For example, there are two stuffs here, like user import from database. We have to, if you want to import user from database, you have to use this user import incremental from database. So what is different between complete and incremental? So complete, what it does is it pulls all the user record from the database, right? But at times it doesn't make any sense. So first time you'll always have to run the complete import, because you want to pull in all the user data from target application to Saviynt. But it doesn't make any sense to each time run the full import. First, it will take much more time, and second, it doesn't add much value, right? Then comes the use of incremental upload. What incremental update does it? It pulls only those user accounts whose value was updated in the specified times. For example, last time when I ran the report, it pulled 100 users. Second time, only 5 new users were added, and 4 to 5 existing user accounts were updated. So what we want to pull in those values, for that we use incremental. So only 15 values will be pulled in at that point of time. Now look here, data, and the data import via connection. So what is the difference between user import via database and user import via connection? User import database is where pulling user from the database. Then we use these two. And if we're using a connection, we'll use this. So since now we just mentioned that we'll be using connection, so what we'll do is we'll come here and we'll add a new job. You have to specify name of the new use. So we can say user import test, anything nomenclature you want to follow or your organization follows to name jobs. After coming, you can see something like this got created. You can see these options there. So next schedule. So jobs are basically scheduled. We don't usually we don't run it manually, because first we need a person who needs to come and run manually, and he has to follow it regularly. So to avoid that dependency, we actually schedule jobs. So whenever we schedule jobs, it run as per the schedule. So as of now, it says 1 Jan 2099. That means this job is not scheduled as it was scheduled to run at this point of time. Then these are the status. Now comes the action part. In action part, you have these four options. Start will start the job. It will run the job manually. Edit trigger is if you want to edit the trigger. Now at Saviynt, there can be hundreds of a connection, or we can pull in user from various sources, right? So what we want to do here is we have to specify which connection and for which job to run. Import from Saviynт Connect, usually it's no. No, don't worry, I'll come back to later. External connection, we have to mention the name of the connection. Let's say if you have any connection establisher, what's the name of the connection which was created? So testcon1. Specify the name of the connection. It's not coming here. It should come. One second, I'll look into that. Then let's cover these options and then we'll cover that. Specify the name of the connection for which you want to run. And then these are the various options which we configure. So first is allow user operation. So what kind of operation do you want to leverage? Do you want to just create users, or do you want to do both, create and update users? And third is only update user. So these are the certain options which are there. And second is user not in feed action. What to do if the user is not in the file from which we are importing? Do you want to inactivate those users within Saviynt, or do you want to take no action? Okay. Zero-day provisioning. Zero-day provisioning is basically used to give birthright accesses. I'll configure you how to configure this when we are trying to give user birthright accesses. But as now, this is what the option is used for. Generate system username. One of the things which usually happen is for example, whenever you join an organization, you get username, right? So we can write certain logic that how to write the username. Usually it's the first letter of your first name, then your last name. Then that's how the username gets created. And this is the logic which you can write. I'll show you where we can write this logic. Generate user email name. What if username is not there, right? So, email is not there. So we can write a logic to generate the email name if email name is not present for that system. Check rules. Rules are something which can be used to give certain accesses to a person or perform certain operation on the user. This is something which we do. If we click yes, then all the rules will be checked. I'll show you where to configure rules and how to do it. Okay, these are not important, forget it. And then the stated configuration. Stated configuration is like what happens is, for example, the way status is maintained on target application could be different from how status is maintained in Saviynt. In Saviynt, it's 0, 1, active, inactive, but at end application, it could be certain numerical as well. For example, -2 can be active and -3 can be inactive. So this is something which we show the mapping as status active equivalent true, if inactive true, if false inactive, something like this. So Saviynt store values as true or false or 0, 1. That's how we show the mapping here, and we can specify it here. Then you click on next, and then it will be saved. And then these two options are scheduled. You can schedule the job. Okay, we haven't created a ticket yet, and that's why it shows like this. Let's see. I'm just creating one. Don't worry about it. Yeah, the job schedule part came here. So we can specify when to run this job. Do you want to run it hourly? Do you want to run it daily? Do you want to run it weekly? Or if these are not satisfied, you can write cron expression. Cron expression are basically used to, you can simply Google search how to write a cron expression. You can actually leverage to learn it. And this is something which we leverage if we can't achieve our goal using these options, right? So cron expression helps us to create the custom value, custom schedule for us. And after that, you save it and the job will run at that point in time. But if you want to just run the job, you have to come here and start. The job will be triggered. So this is the concept of job. So if you think from design perspective or from higher level, what we did first was, we create a connection, right? Connection to actually import user from our target application from our authoritative source or any source per se. Once we have connected the application, how the Saviynt will know when to run that job, right? So what we'll do is Saviynt, we configure all these options, and then Saviynt goes and actually pull in all the user record from target application. to the Saviynт. And that's something which we do using job control panel. So this is how user actually users actually will get created. How you can see, or where you can see whether the user got created or not, I'll have to come here, come to identity repository, and there you can see under users. So these are the users which are already existing in the system. So you can view all the users. So basically there are three ways you can create a user or identity within your Saviynt. First is via import. Okay, so so now user will be created here, and there are three ways to create a user. First, as I said, using connection, right? Second is you can create user using UI, but usually we don't follow such practices. When it comes to dealing with organization, we create using import only or using CSV import. But if you click here, there's something called as create user on the UI option. So you can create user using this option as well. All you have to do is mention any username, test user 12345. For example, I created this user. I'm just showing how to get using various options. First, this user got created, and then certain options will come on later on. Other attributes is basically custom properties, something which so these are the various values which are there: city, phone number, street. We can specify in the mapping so that it creates all these things. But what if there is this certain attribute which is not mentioned in this list? Then we can use custom property to populate those values. There are around 65 custom properties which we can leverage. And then we'll cover these options. What are these options? Don't worry about it. User group, user account, roles, SAV role. And then there's something called as update history. Update history shows what happened at user. So whenever I take any action on the user, it will be reflected here in the update history. So whenever I want to track what happened to certain user, how it happened, I can leverage this. Okay. So this is about user. And the third way to create a user is via CSV import. Let's see. So as you said, if I had to create one user, I can create it using this way, but there are 7 to 8 users. Then doesn't make any sense to create 7 to 10 users using this, right? For that, we can leverage CSV import. Let's see. So CSV import, as the name says, is the CSV file. This is something which I created. Username, account name will not be okay. Let me see. Let's create a new file altogether. ABC copy is the name. Yes. So the first column specifies the value, like username, first name, last name, what is the status, and custom property. So let's see, username is anything. Say Ram123 is the username. First name is Ram. Second name is 123. Status is active. Custom property 5 is test user. Okay. Now let's import this user. Action, upload user. You can see certain options here. These are the options which are similar to what we saw whenever we importing user, right? Using that job control panel, using connection. So first row is heading. In our file, you see, sorry, so you see the first row is heading, right? So mention the first row is heading. If there is no heading, it will mark as no. Zero day provisioning. What actions to take? If we want to give certain word-threat access to user, we leverage this. Generate username. If you want to generate username, system username. Generate email. When you want to generate email. Check rules if you want to check rules. Pre-process config, whatever if you want to, before reporting, if you want to take any actions, we specify it here. So for time being, let's keep this option as here. This on first row heading, and let's try to import this user. So don't worry if I don't cover all those options, right? I don't want to cover all those things which will confuse you. So once you have access to that fresh desk, right, you can actually go and they'll give you details of each and every attribute which you can learn. So if I skip some certain attributes, it's because it will be difficult for you to understand as of now. And these are not required. These are only in exceptional cases that we need. So once you start working on Saviynт, or if you have working on engagement, you can go to fresh desk ticket. They have details of each and every attribute, and then from there you can learn when to use and when not to use. Okay, so don't worry about it. And then this was status, right? So yeah, you can see these three fields got populated here because the column name I used actually matches what is there in the Saviyn, but status and custom property 5 status was not there because Saviyn stores status as status key, not as status. So all we have to do is come here and write status key, custom property 5, and let's import this user. Let's see what happens. So it says total number record 1, user inserted 1. It was not an update operation, right? So it was insert operation. We created one user.
It's an insertion, yeah.
Yeah. Saviyn stored everything in form of database, right? That's why it says inserted. So, sorry, 1, 2, 3 was the name.
Ram 1, 2, 3.
See, this user got created. Status is active.
Yes.
And let's see what is the value of custom property 5. Custom property 5 test user. So any question so far? I'm telling you in very as simple as possible so that you're able to understand the concepts, and going forward you have the idea how to proceed. This is how we form user. So as I was so this is so what happened, this is Saviynt, right? This is Saviynt. Don't mind up printing. This was our auth source. We have imported user from here to here. Okay, so now we have certain users. So what should be the next logical step? Next logical step is to do application onboarding, or to onboard certain application. That is to establish connection between target application and Saviynt, so that we can actually, it's a two-way communication here. We can read data from here and we can write data here. Similarly, this is the another target application. Okay, this is another target application. So what happens is, now we have all the users within Saviynt. The next thing is to establish connection with the end application so that we can import value from a certain accounts. So usually what happens, example, this Saviynt was not there, this end application had certain accounts, right? Because people were still using this application. It's not like Saviynt was not there, people were not using it. For example, it could be your payroll management system. Entire data of users payroll is here. So HR people obviously used to access the system. So there were certain accounts there in the system. So what happens is, to access this system, the first thing is to establish connection between Saviynt and this target system. Let's call it T1. Okay. And the second step would be to bring in all these accounts which were here in this target system to Saviynt. Okay. And then obviously Saviynt has all the users which we imported using this auth source integration. So now what happens is, after pulling in all the accounts here, the next step will be map these accounts to users. To get the logical idea, we'll have target application. For example, your payroll management system could be there, and people have account there. That's how they're able to manage any application, right? To use Facebook, you need to have a Facebook account. Similar to manage the system, you need to have certain accounts, right? So after you establish connection between Saviynt and target system, the next thing is to bring in all these accounts. Accounts are here. Now these accounts are called orphan accounts unless there is a user who's mapped to these accounts, because as of now no one is the owner of this account. So we have user here. Now the next would be to map this user to these accounts. You got connection between the target system, right? Similarly, we go to where will we go? Admin. After identity repository, and then we'll go here and then connection. So let's assume that the target application is Active Directory. It could be anything, but let's take Active Directory because it's more widely used, and that's how we do it. We'll come here, we'll create a new connection, and let's see. One second, give me a minute. So this will, you have to specify the name of the connection. Anything can be there, right? And then anything doesn't matter. AD. These options will remain the same as I covered last time: host name, username, password. Okay. Search filter, object filter, which accounts to actually pull in. Search filters from where you want to start the pulling. Okay, and after that we have something called as account attribute. Okay, account attribute is basically as a controls the LDAP attribute to Saviynt account mapping. In case of username, as I mentioned, we have to specify the mapping, right? How to do mapping between the user and the Saviynt and the application. Similarly, something we have to do with the attribute mapping as well. So account name, a simple example could be, just to so that we understand this. So name is the Saviynt attribute. At this at account level, I'll show you where it's written. And then CN is something which specifies the different account at the backend. And what is the data type? It's string type. So got it. Just as it was the case with the user mapping between target and system, account mapping also needs to be done between Saviynt and the target application. That's why account mapping is used. Similarly, display name is a Saviynt attribute, and backend also has display name. So we have to specify things like this. Sorry, name. We specify it here. Okay, in a similar format, and there's something which this is done, right? So this is something which we use. And what are entitlements? So this is something which I have to tell you. What are entitlements? So entitlements are basically the type of access you have. Entitlement give you certain rights. For example, if you consider the payroll management, there are certain entitlements. First could be you can just view your pay scale, your pay scale. Okay, if someone is on HR, that person can view payroll of all the employees within that organization. So entitlement is that what kind of action certain people can have, certain accounts can have other target application. This is called as entitlement. Entitlement attribute is nothing. It's basically the type of entitlement. Usually for AD, it's member of. Don't worry, it will be given by the target. This is not something which you remember. Once you have access to the target application, this is something which is evident how the value is stored there. So this is not something to worry about. Can be member of, it can be IB mall groups. This is something which the client or the organization will give you. User attribute not needed here because for user and applications up. So now come as the concept of endpoint filter. I'll tell you later. Don't worry about. Now comes with the create account JSON. What is create account JSON? Create account JSON is basically used to, as you can see, JSON to specify field value which will be used to create new account. For example, to create a new account and the target application, you need certain attributes. For example, it could be first name, it could be last name, it could be account name. So these are the certain attributes which are used, and there's something which can be specified here. So for example, if you are looking to create your account in Facebook, what you need? You need your email address, you need your first name, last name, right? And you have to specify the password. So these are the fields which you need to create your account in Facebook. Similarly, if it's a payroll management system, you need certain attributes to create an account. Without that, account will not be created. This is something. So this application has certain accounts initially, but leveraging Saviynt, what we can do is we can create account for new users in this application. For example, a new person came and he wanted to have access to this system. A simple example could be that person just moved to HR department. Initially, he was not in HR department. Now this person moves to HR department and his new job requires access to the system. So you can come in the Saviynt, this user can come in the Saviynt and then can say, hey, I need access to this application. Create account JSON are the parameters or the values which we need to create create account at the application. Update account JSON. What should happen if you want to update an account? For example, that already the user already had access to that system, but I want to update the account. And for this, we use update account JSON. Okay. Then review is not important. Update user, it's for user. Enable account JSON. Okay. So what happened? Consider the scenario when there was a user who was terminated within the organization, and for that user, what we did, we disabled his or her account as a target application. So usually what we did was there is a status field. There is something called as disabled account JSON as well, which is somewhere below. So let's consider disable account JSON first. So what happens, that person was terminated within the organization. So it doesn't make any sense to have that person's account in active state, right? For that, what we leverage disable account JSON to tell what should happen to the account at the end application. The most usual case is to disable the account at the end system. So there are two cases. First is delete the account at the end system. Second is disable the account. If we consider what many organizations actually do is they maintain that account for 50 to 60 days. The simple use case could be rehire. For one of my clients, the requirement was once the person leaves an organization, what should happen is you should disable that person's account at end application for 90 days. And if the person rejoins the organization within 19 days, then enable that account. And if that person doesn't join, then delete that account. Okay. So as you can see here, disabled account JSON, you can specify what should happen to that person's account. And in enable account JSON, you can write what should happen to that person's end account. So a simple example could be update the status key from inactive to active. So this is something which we use. Account name rules. Specify the rules to generate DN for the account provisioning separated. So what should happen? We can specify the account name as in how the account name should be there. And the simple example could be system username. Whatever the username is there, we can leverage that to create it. So account name rule is used to specify how the account should get created at the end application. And as I said, remove account JSON. What should happen if you are removing that person's account, as the name is pretty self-explanatory. And these are the values, like if you're creating a password at end application, what should be minimum length, what should be the maximum length, and these are the certain options. Don't worry, the list goes on and on and on, but you don't have to worry about all these options because usually we leverage only few options, and that's option I've already covered as in how it's used. Okay. So these are the certain options, like first is to establish the connection to the target application. Second, you pull in all the accounts and you tell account attribute as in how should be mapping should be done between account within Saviynт and the end application. Then you specify certain things as in create account JSON. What should happen if we try to create a new account? We can mention certain parameters we should leverage to do so. Update account JSON. Then remove account JSON. What should be happen if you're trying to remove account or disable account? Enable account JSON. Yeah, here's disable account JSON, right? So then enable account JSON. What should happen if you try to enable a person's account at the end application?
Yeah.
So there are certain options which we have to configure here. These are called group import mapping. And let's cover certain options as well. Okay, let's cover group import mapping as well. So group are nothing but entitlement. What are entitlement? They're what kind of access you have at the certain at the end application. For AD, we call it groups. For example, you can have in case of a database, you can have 3-4 access. First is read only access. You can read the data from the database, right? Second could be read. If you have a database, we can read and write database. Third is update. So these are certain options which are there. So this is called as groups. So now what is group import mapping? And it was created of account and user. Group import mapping basically tells us to do mapping between the end application and the group which is getting Saviynт. Mapped access import to specify which attribute of a group which is mapped to the Saviynт attribute. I'll create a group or entitlement in the Saviynт as well. So don't worry about that. Then you'll be able to understand better. But there's something which specifies the connection level from where we want to pull in all the groups or accesses. So if you think of an AD, what happens? AD has certain details. It can have the system, a target system, AD can have certain information in it, Active Directory, right? It can have all the details of all the users. So in case of, you remember we specified object filterer based DN, user import. We can specify so that it pulls in only this detail. Similarly, we can have detail of certain accounts. We specify accounts only thing at the account import so that this it picks up only these accounts. And then we have groups. Groups are entitlements or accesses. So we specify base DN so that it picks whatever mentioned here. So these AD store group base DN from which search begins. Okay, this is a certain options which is there. So in connection, we basically do three things: put in all the users, pull in all the accounts, and third is pull in all the accounts. Third is write logic so that we can create, update, remove, disable the user. And the last is for groups and entitlements also we specified here only. So this is something which we do. And there's also certain thing which is related pretty much here is status threshold config. Status threshold config. So what is user threshold status threshold config? Threshold status config is basically used to specify which all are the it will be used to manage the status. The attributes of status threshold config are status column. So as I told you, right, for accounts there can be certain values which map to active accounts or inactive accounts. This is something which we specify here so that we can handle it there. So whenever something is come to statuses, there are certain options which we leverage here and which we mention it here. So this is the status. A simple example could be, as you can just show you here, is just an example which is on top of my head. Active status. And don't worry about this, everything is written. You don't have to memorize and try to figure out what. Once you start working with it, it can be one, then two. So what will happen is how Saviynto will do it is if these two values are there, then the status is active for this user. These all specify the active status. There's something which to manage the status we use status threshold config. I know it's a very difficult thing to grasp because I can't find out certain examples to actually help you, make you understand. But just keep that on top of mind that there's something which is used to manage this status configs. So once established these things, you run the import. And how can run the import? For that also we have to go to the job control panel to import certain accounts. So let's see, we have established the connection. What we want to do is we want to bring in all the accounts from target application to Saviynto. For that, we'll have to go to the job control panel. Then let's go to data. You can see application data import. Okay, click here. Okay, there's no instance as of now. So you can see over here application data import. This is used to actually bring in import account and entitlement. So let's go here. Let's create a trigger job test underscore anything can be the name. You can create as per the logic which people follow within the organization, and come here and then edit trigger. Select security system. For that will this is something which I will tell you before I jump in. So now I've established the connection, but we have to create a security system within the Saviynt and endpoint so that the mapping is done. So target application will start bringing in the accounts. Okay, but at Saviynt, we have to specify where to store these accounts, right? Otherwise, where to map it. So that security system and endpoints are used. These are the same endpoints. So these two bundles specify application within Saviynt. For example, within Saviynt, I can have a payroll management. So after bringing all the accounts, these should be stored here. So after coming here into repository, we have to go to security system. So security system and endpoint, they together bundle and they represent the end application for within the Saviyntt. So come here, this is a manual process, right? Let's say test payroll management system, which we created. Test payroll management system. Okay, display name is something which will be visible to the end user. Usually it's the same. So don't worry about these options. We'll cover all these options later. Come and create. So this is something which was created. Majorly in the security system, we specified 2 to 3 stuff. First is your connection. Which connection to refer? I created a connection test call. So let's say test call connection 1 here. So which is the connection should be used for provisioning? It should be used for test con. If you don't specify it, it leverages this connection only. But if you want to specify some other connection of provisioning, you have to mention this. And then comes to workflow. Add access workflow, remove access workflow. So Saviynt also used to provision accounts, right? So for example, if someone wants to get account for payroll management system, they'll have to come in the Saviynt and raise a request. After raising a request, it has to go through certain approvals. If you just come and request an account, it will not create your account. It has to go through certain approvals as well. There's something we specify workflow. I'll create workflows, so don't worry about it. What should happen? Someone wants to remove their account. These are the basic things which we use, and these are certain options. So I'll tell you what is certain options there. Automated provisioning. Automated provisioning is for connected application. Connected application is there is connectivity between the end application and the backend. So automatic the provisioning will happen. There's concept of disconnected application as well. And what is the meaning of disconnected application is there is application, but there is no connection between the both. There is no connection. And how basically accounts get created in that system is people come here, raise a request, and after approval, they have this details, and there is certain team. This team actually comes and then look at this record and manually create account here in this system. There is no direct provisioning between the two, and that is called as disconnected applications. You don't have to run any job. As soon as the account is approved, it's provisioned. You don't have to run any job. And then recon application is whether you are pulling in data from end application within Saviynt or not. So this is something excuse me, which is used to if we are actually pulling in data from end application or not. So these are the more commonly used values which we use when we are creating excuse me, an account. And then I think that's pretty much insert provisioning. I told you do not run the job. There's something called as recon as something which we are pulling the data or not. These are the generic options which we use here. So after creating the security system, now we have to create endpoint. Endpoint has more application specific information. Come to the security system, endpoint, just come here and create endpoint. I know it's a very confusing thing to understand, but it will become better. I'll tell you when I come and show you about the provisioning, the things will become much more clearer. And then let me request a user access for a user, then things will become clear. So let's see. So similarly, endpoint name, what is the name of the endpoint? It can be payroll management. Display name could be payroll management. Similarly, security system, which security system it should refer. For us, it should be test payroll management, and these are the values. And let's say and create a security system. Okay, now it got created. You can see certain options there. Okay, so I'll cover all these options. Don't worry what is other attributes, what entitlement type, role type, dynamic attribute, map endpoint. Don't worry about these things. So now you can see all these values got created. Now I go to job control panel. I told you, right? After creating that connection, we have to pull in all the accounts with Saviynt. So we have to come here. We have to specify which, sorry, cancel it here. Come here, then edit trigger, specify which system to use. We have the test payroll management system. And after coming here, specify the connection, which connection to use. We have test con something like this. Oh, it's not coming. Come man. 1 second. So you have to specify the name of the connection. I'm not sure why it's not coming. It should come. Let me check. Oh, connection status. I'm not able to establish connection only, so that's the reason it's coming. Then it will be difficult. So basically, all you have to do is come here, specify the connection while leveraging which you want to do it. But I'm not able to. And then save here. And then two other option comes whether you want to access account or accounts or access. So what do you mean by account import? When you select values account, all the account from that end application will be pulled into Saviynt. And after pulling all the accounts, what happens is there's something called as account import mapping here. Let me see. Yeah, account correlation rule. So all the accounts are pulled into Saviynt. What value will be used to map those accounts? So the value in the user profile, for example, it can be username, and value at the account level, it can be name at the answer system and action, and then save it here. And that's how the mapping will run. Now we get account import mapping. What we'll do is we'll pull on the account and search for the mapping. And once the username is equal to account, then it will do the mapping between user profile and the end application. And all the accounts for this security system will come under this here. All the accounts will come here for this security system. Similarly, all the entitlements will come here. I think I've done it. Let me show you. I've done it. I'll create one entitlement for you, and then I'll show the mapping as well. But I think I created one during the last demo. Oh, sorry, not accounts. Security system. If you open Fin1. So Fin1, there are endpoint. So yeah, in the account section, we have these two accounts which are created for this security system, and that's why it shows here like this. Similarly, all the entitlements are here. I'll create one entitlement and show you how to create entitlement manually as well. But this are all the entitlement, all the accesses for this application comes under entitlement type, and all the accounts for this application comes under this. These are the, so basically entitled type is nothing, as I told you, right? Entitlement type of it can be IBM all groups, Fin1. So what are the different types of entitlement usually come here, and under one entitlement type there can be certain accesses, and all those things come here under the entitlement section. So endpoint, major things to look after is endpoint. We have to create the endpoint, and after running the import, all you have to do is you can check what are entitlement types that were pulled in here. You don't have to create it manually. When is that connected application, it gets created manually. Oh, sorry, automatically. All the accounts will pull in here after running the account import, and after running the access import, these two values get populated in the field itself. For our demo purpose, I'll manually create entitlement for you. Then I'll show you how it can be done. But I know it's a bit confusing, but let's think from the logical perspective. We established connection. After established connection, we have to create application within the Saviynt as well. Then only we can map one application within the Saviynt to the end application. There are two steps to follow it. One is security system. In security system, we specified two, three major things. Firstly, what kind of connection are we using? Okay. Second is workflow, and third is whether it's automated provisioning or not. Those certain options at the lower end. Endpoint specifies certain things. and endpoint level B, it's more application specific data. So endpoint, then what are the entitlement types? That application has different entitlements, and all the accounts which is mapped to the system comes under here. So this is basically about endpoint and security system and the connection. And then to run account import, so sorry, for running user import, we have to run a job. To run account import, we have to run a job. And for running access import or group import, we have to run the job. And that's how these things get pulled into Saviynt. Any questions, Ram? So basically, bringing in user is a different action altogether. You bring in all the user, the job is done. Now comes the target application. Target application can have accounts, as I told you, right? It can have accounts and accesses. Access matlab what kind of access certain people need. Okay. So when you run account import, account will come within Saviynt, and then you run access import, it will bring in access. What is the need of access? For example, as I told you, right, database management or database have 3-4 access versus read only, write only, for 2 example. So we can't, we'll have no idea about what kind of access are there in the end application, right? So access import will bring in all these access or type of access certain person can have in this target application. Accounts will bring all these accounts. So after accounts are come, the next step is to correlate users and account. And that's why we use correlation rule to map users to accounts. Let's look forward. What was next on my agenda? Let me see. But since we don't have a connected application, what we'll usually do is I will create these things and then I'll do the mapping and let's see how it goes. And then we'll create an account for a new user and let's see how it goes. So, so the first thing which we have to do is create a entitlement type. Entitlement type specifies what kind of entitlement is. Unless we have entitlement type defined, we can't have entitlements, right? So define entitlement type, we have to go to endpoint, and we created this like payroll management, right? Let's go here. Usually, again, I'm saying we don't create it manually, but I'm doing it here manually. Create entitlement type. Let's see, we can have a payroll, member of payroll. Usually, let's keep it member of only. There's something which AD has, member of. Display name will be member of only, or we can have a member of payroll. This is something which is visible to user. This is by default, right? And let's create it here. We don't need to do all these mappings, and there are certain mappings which are there. I'll tell you what these options are, but let's create a. Now we have created entitlement type. Next is we have to create entitlements, and to create entitlements we have to go here. Action. You can see we can create entitlement using 3-4 ways. First is via CSV import or create entitlement. It's a similar process, but I'll just create it using UI. Say test payroll 1. Which security system it should be mapped to? We have something as test payroll management, specify the security system, specify the endpoint. We have payroll management, specify entitlement type. These are the drop-down options. So what basically I did here, I told Saviynt that I created something called as payroll 1 and Saviynt. The security system was which security system it should be mapped to. It's mapped to payroll management system. It is mapped to endpoint payroll, and endpoint type is that I told you we can have certain entitlement type for one application. So it specifies what kind of entitlement type is there. Let's see and create here. So what actually we did here, we created one entitlement or to specify what kind of access that person can have at, let's keep it read only. It will make more sense for you to understand. Okay. Now let's get another entitlement. Payroll write only. Test payroll read only. Let's get us another example. We can create using upload as well, CSV upload as well. It is a similar process as I've shown you during the user import. Write only. Let's map to this endpoint, this security system, this member payroll, and let's create. So we have now 2 entitlements. So what these two entitlements will do is they will give access to user to either write only or read only. Again, I'm saying usually what happens is we usually import entitlements because at end application there could be certain entitlements or groups which we don't know what it does, right? They have certain access within that target application, and once we run the access import, all these things are pulled in within the Saviynt in case of connected application, something which happens there. But since we don't have it, we'll create it manually. So now we have two endpoints which are basically two kind of entitlements, and it is mapped to certain security system. Now, as I told you, what Saviynt actually does is Saviynt allows us to do this mapping, but it's not only that, right? To manage any access or account, we need to have a two-way communication. This is your target. Okay, let's call it target. Let's call it Saviynt, and then we have user here. So user can actually come in the Saviynt and request access for certain application. Okay, so to request any access, what all do we need? Firstly, we need to specify what kind of access do you need for this application, right? There are certain application you can need administrative access. You can just, in case of database, you can just read only, write only. Are these examples? Are you able to correlate with examples? Ram, otherwise I'll
Yes,
use
sir.
some other example. Okay.
Yes,
So we
sure,
have
sure,
this
Ravi.
kind of
Continue.
entitlement. So what kind of entitlement basically means, what kind of access basically means entitlement. So when we come, a user comes to Saviynt, it has the person has to specify, hey, give me access to this target application, and I need this access. There are two things which we have to specify here. So basically we need two things. Which system, which is our target system, we need access for, right? And what kind of access we need. These two things which we have to specify. So let's see how a person can request. So any person can come and request access as long as they have access to Saviynt, and I'll tell you what how to manage access as well. These are under SAV rule, but let's go. So we have something called ARS. This is an access request. The person will come here. You can see certain options are there. It first is there request access. This is used to request access for yourself. Request history is used to see what happened to a request, and record access for others. Let me request access for myself. Oh, oh, and also if you don't have a manager, you can't have or you can't request. This is something which we have configured here. This is not always true, but let's see. Let's request someone who has a manager. This is something which we can configure, and these are all the users other than my profile within the Saviynt, and I can request access to anyone. So let's request access for this user. Okay, come here and say next. I'm requesting access for someone else. I can request access for uh, someone else's behalf as well. This is the application. I'll configure payroll as well, but I just wanted to show you how it's done. This is the name of the endpoint or the security system. Okay, why didn't payroll come? Let's see. Let's debug that first. It should be requestable. Interesting. Okay, enable, disable. These are the options here. Or disable account, disable new account if it already exists. Interesting. Should come. Oh, okay. I know the workflow. Okay, I know why it's not coming. So don't worry about this is certain application which I configured. I just wanted to show you the flow. I have to configure a couple of other stuff. After that, that will be requestable. But let me show you so that you understand the logic as well. I know. So you have to specify which kind of target application do you need access for. Come here and select it. Okay. Then click on checkout here. Then after coming here, yeah, this is something which I configured. Don't worry about it. So there are two types of access or entitlements for this system. So if I come here, if I select entitlements for let's go ahead in the security system here, fin1, we specify entitlements or all the entitlements are visible endpoint level, right? Let's come here and see entitlement. There are two entitlements at fin level: test entitlement 1, test entitlement 2. So you can see these two entitlements are there, right? Let's select her and next. And here the person can actually view that they requested for this application, and the name of the entitlement is access, which type of access that person requested. He requested what? Test 1 entitlement, and comment so that the person who's approving a request should be able to understand it. You placed a request. So you see what I did here. I requested access for fin1 application or the security system for fin1 application on for someone else. So within Saviynt, what I did, I came to Saviynt, I requested access for fin1. What kind of access? What kind of entitlement? Test entitlement 1 for that user. This is something which I did. Okay, so as of now, let's request access for someone else. You can request access for yourself or someone else, but let's request access for someone else. Let's pick this user, then go next. All the application for which that person request will come here. We will do for payroll as well, but as of now, let's do for fin1 because there is certain configuration which we have to make, which I'll tell you later how to do it. After fin1, let's click on checkout. This is another application which I've configured, right? So don't worry from where did it come, what is there. So I told you there's another, similarly as we created payroll, there's something called as fin1 as well. After coming here, we have to specify which access that person needs. Let's say test 1 here. And this is something which I configured. I'll show you how we configure these two options as well. So don't worry as of now. Just focus here. You specify application, you specify the type of entitlement that person needs. Next. And then specify the comments, anything, so that the approver should be able to know it and come in. They are able to place the request. Got it? Logical step we should think after placing a request is, just because you place a request, then you should not get any access, right? There has to be a certain process. The next process could be approval. After you place the request, it should go for certain approvals. What is approval? Approval is basically I placed a request and I want it to go through certain approvals that be it my manager or be it someone else can come and take action whether to give access to this person or not. Okay, this is basically used to ensure that fraud doesn't happen and I don't have unnecessary access. So this is something which we configure using workflow. As the name says, workflow basically specifies the flow the request should take. How to configure workflow? So for configuration, we always go to the admin part. For most of the configurations, let me put it this way, we go to admin part, go to here, you can see workflows. Come here, workflow approval. And how we have to create a new workflow. You know the purpose of workflow? Workflow is used to specify what approval route my request should take. Okay, let's come here, let's play start. Okay, start here. Now I have to write logic for my workflow. A simple logic could be manager approval. Whatever the person should come, you will specify the manager. Let's say test, you have to specify name of this flow, name of this block. So what I'm trying to specify is the name of this block, which is used access for some coding or some references. So test man is the name of that workflow. Now these are the email templates. So first thing is we have to, how will the manager know that that person has got a request to approve? Then notification email. I'll tell you how to configure email as well, but as of now, what email that person should receive. I've configured one email test if in email. So let's use that. I'll tell you how to configure emails as well, don't worry. Then what email should requester approve? For example, you saw I raised request for someone else, right? In that case, the requester will also get email that a request has been raised for you. So that will specify here. Now comes the reminder part. We have to specify the reminder. Obviously, what if the manager didn't take any action? We can specify the reminder as well. And the first reminder due date, when should the person receive reminder? Okay. So these are the certain configuration we do here. We have to collect this. Now, if you think, you can see there are three options. What should happen if the person approves the request? After approval, what should happen is grant access.
Grant access.
Yes, because access should be given. You have to name this GA1. Okay. If the person rejects it, what should happen? Reject access.
Reject access.
Okay. And then obviously, if there is start, there has to be one end as well. Let's end this process. Both the things. Got it? Simple workflow.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now there's something called as escalation. What happens if the manager don't take any action? The manager, simple example could be the manager could be on leave, right? If the manager on leave for
moves to next level manager.
Perfect. Then escalate it. Then you have to use escalation block. So there should be something called as escalation. Let's see. Escalation here, right? It's by escalation, but we are moving it to someone else. Now specify, move it, escalation but here. Escalation should be right, anything doesn't matter, but let's use some logical name. Let's go. After how many days do you want to escalate it? 5 days. Sorry. Let's for our demo, let's keep it 5 minutes. Escalate to whom? We can escalate to, so simple as manager's manager. It will be escalated to manager's manager. Come here. Then you can see similarly same thing. How the manager will know that person should receive email, right? Then select the email template. Then we need to, if you want to send the reminder, send the reminder. So similar what we have, similar configurations here. Now there are certain things. If access is approved, then what should happen? Grant access. If access rejected, reject access. We don't want to do further escalation, so we'll leave this as it is. You got it?
Yes, Ravi.
Okay. After that, we have to save the workflow. Choose a workflow name. Oh, we have to specify the name of the workflow as well, right? Let's say payroll workflow. Let's keep it example workflow. Just example, right? Save it. Save successfully. Send for approval. Send for approval. And after approval, we have to approve the workflow. This is something which Saviynт has. After you have saved workflow, you have to approve it from here. This is used to make sure that, just to, depends on business requirement. You want some other person to approve the workflow. Then you give this right to some access to someone else. These come under SAV rules. I'll show you later. But workflow is now it's there. This workflow has been configured. Right. There's something called as use. There's other options as well, but let's cover those later when I tell you about the user groups as well. Let me write so that I don't forget. KRS, then we see user groups as well. That will cover user group as well. Okay. Now let's map. So workflow have been created, and I told you what we do. We do the mapping at security system level for the workflow for payroll management. And we have to specify for add access, therefore this workflow. For remove access, similar workflow. For remove access, what should happen when a person asked for account creation? Whatsoever person asks for remove access. Okay. And remove access can be needed. For example, let's see, consider example that I moved from one department to another department. I need access to the same application, but I need different access. So what in that case, that person can come and raise a request to remove my initial access and give me new access. So this is something for remove access request. This workflow path will be taken, And for access, this workflow path will be taken. You can select anything. For example, I can select test user group workflow or the same workflow. I can use it and come and update it. And let's see. Now there's a request for this application. Let's go to varios. And we will see the escalation part also. Okay, whether it got escalated or not.
Okay.
So let's consider this user. Click next. See, now the payroll management came. Initially, it was not coming, right? Because we didn't map any workflow.
We didn't map the workflow. Yeah.
Yes. After mapping, it's coming. Perfect. Select it. Check out. Then to ask what kind of entitlement do we need? We have two entitlements, right? Which we created, read only, write only. Let's see, we want read only. Next. So what is the name of the user? Abby Heinig. Let's say this user, and let's check who's the manager of this person, because the request should go to that person, right? Let's select this person. Let's say Abby Heinig. Let's open this person's profile. So you can see under manager, this person's manager is this person, 216. And this person is same manager. Let's change it, and let's change this person. Let's make this person's manager Ganesh Maharaj. Okay, now Ganesh is this person's manager. So it should go to Ganesh for approval, right? So this is the user for whom we want to raise request, and Ganesh is this person's manager. And let's and also let's see who's Ganesh's manager, because it has to go through escalation as well, right? So let's see who's Ganesh.
Yes.
Manager. Okay, sorry. This is Ganesh and Edwin is the manager, but let's change Ganesh manager to some other user. John Adam is Ganesh manager. Okay. Let's place this request. Now you'll understand the need of comment. Need access, so that Ganesh should be able to understand why I need the needed access for payroll viewing purpose, record view. Now we need understand the need of this this comment. Now Ganesh will receive a request, and thus Ganesh should be able to see why I need that access. That's why they need a comment. Let's see. Okay. Congratulations, request and submit, and action view status. From here I can view access, status of my request. Assignee, who's as assignee? It got assigned to Ganesh, right? So you can see in ERS there are certain things: request whom, request history, request approval. What is request history? Request history shows history of your request, or where your request actually is. This is your request ID. If you click here, you can see I raise a request for new account, and access was test payroll management. The sign is Ganesh Maharaj. My comment was need access for payroll. This is there, right? And what I did was, see, so to get access you need two things. You need account, and you need what kind of access do you need. So for those, both, what is the status? Both are in pending state. That means request has not been approved. And let's see what happens in case of escalation. So this is something which you can do view. Request history is there. Request home is basically your request home option will come. You can user group. After 5 minutes, we'll check out the escalations. But let's see about user group. What a user group? As the name suggests, it is group of users. Okay. Why do we need user group? A simple example could be, as I told you, right? For example, there is very application which is very high profile. For that, whenever a person needs any access, that access should be approved as soon as possible. And if only one person can approve that request, what if that person is on PTO? We'll have to wait for the escalation to happen, right? Which doesn't make any sense, because we want the approval as soon as possible. What can we do is we can have a group of users who can approve request. For example, if there are 5 group of users who can access that approve that request, then it's very easy. If one is on holiday, there are 4 people who can approve that request. So it ensures the approval get processed as fast as possible, right? And this is the concept of user group. What is user group? User group is nothing but group of users. Let's see. Go to admin, come here, identity repository, and user groups. Let's consider user group. Then we have to create a user group. Advanced, create new user group. Say payroll user group, payroll approver or the user group. Specify who should be the user who are part of this user group. Not Ganesh will be right. Now for come here and create. Payroll user group got created. These are the users. You can specify what kind of entitlements do they need. If you want to specify, usually we don't do that. Who should be the user group owner? That's the person who will manage group membership. You can specify here who's that person who manages this user group. The user group history, what happens to that user group. For example, I created this user group and then we added these two users, and these two people are the user group. I'll show you the example. Let's go to the workflow part. 5 minutes over, or let's see if the 5 minutes are over. Let's check about the escalation bit as well. It's come here. Sorry, it should be under ARS. ARS come here. Request history. The UI has changed a bit. It's changed a lot, to be honest, because I work on a newer version, and the UI I work on is entirely different. It seems like 5 minutes are not over yet. So okay, it's not actually. So I'll show you another example of, well, let's go to workflow. Workflow list. Let's get this user. So this is something which I created. Come here, edit workflow. You can see the workflow. Yeah, so this is something which I created. So it's similarly just like a previous one, right? All I have to do it here is just remove this thing. Now I don't want the access to go to a manager or anyone. I want it to go to user group. For that we use custom assignment. Custom assignment basically specify which user group. What is the name of our user group? User group here. All you have to do is specify the name of the user group. Peer approval. Perfect. Specify here. It will go to that person. Name of the block. User GRP. Anything approval. You got it right. For custom assignment, we can specify it too.
Yes.
Done. Similarly, we have, you can see other options. If and else, you can use if and else block. For example, a simple example of if else block could be if the entitlement name for this security system is something like there are two entitlements right here. Let's say I'm just telling you an example. Payroll has read and write only. So you can say if that entitlement request entitlement value is ENT1, then it should go to that approval. If it's write only, then it should go to other approval. So if and block is basically to condition if you want to redirect request for certain things. Another example could be user. If requestee or requestee is a contractor, then it should go for certain approval, certain different approval. And if it's a normal employee, full-time employee, it should go for certain approvals. This is something which we specify using if and else block. So these are certain few examples which we use. Usually we use manage and custom basically, and if else block obviously which we need. Escalation, grant access, approve, and all these things. So this is something which we do, then save, close, send for approval. So whenever we have to deal with approval logic, we have to leverage workflow. Come here and approve it. See, it got assigned to John Adams. You see here?
Yeah.
It was escalated. So the request which we initially rose. Now let's go request home. Let's see. Ganesh, but it got escalated, right? We said yes, in the workflow is specified, if no Ganesh don't take action within 5 minutes, escalate it.
Yes.
Let's see in the approvals. It's going to show the escalation bit as well. If you come here, if you open it, let's see the request history, what happened to request. If you come here and in the new UI, you can actually view what happened. So these are the requests. You see, escalated to next, escalated to next,
Yes.
next, and whom it was escalated to. So this is the name of the block. Like that's what I'm saying. Like for references which we use, if let me open this workflow which we configured. Test per role. Sorry, edit. You can see the name of the workflows. Test man was the name of the block. So here it shows that test man. What happened in test man? Second one, esc man. It was named esc man. It's showing here esc man. What happened is pending approval, pending approval. You can see, right? It got escalated. So this was the concept of workflow. Is it clear now? So the next thing which we have to do is we have to approve request. Got it? Because a person will not get any access until the request is approved, right? Let me approve that request. Since I'm a super admin, I am the administrator, I have all the rights, I can do everything. So this is the request. Okay, usually how the logic should be, the manager will receive this email, the manager will log in into Saviynт using his or her account, and then they approve the request. But since I have super admin, I have all the access, let me approve the access as well. Accept account, I'm saying, okay, I'm allowing this person to have account, justification for traceability, and this entitlement. I want this person to have this access. You can see, confirm. The request has been approved from my end. You got it? A person came, the person raised the request within Saviynт, it went through certain approvals, workflow, then the person who needs to approve that person approved that request and the request was approved. Now come to the next step. Now account should get created at the end application. So within sorry, let me. So in the security system, you saw there was something called as instant provisioning. You saw the right, very well configuring. There's something called as instant provisioning. So as soon as it creates now, it will provision if you mark this option as yes. If it is disabled, it will not do that. So usually what happens in the flow is that we have two tasks, pending task, completed task. So as soon as the person approves that request, it moves to pending task. And in pending task, it shows what are the tasks which are in the pending state which not have been completed. Here you have certain action, change owner, discontinue all tasks, it will discontinue all the tasks, then no one will able to, no action will be taken on this task. Advanced option, if you want to, this option basically allows you to search various options. Let's using a security system, which was our payroll management system. Let's search. That will show only two requests. One was for new account and was for new access. These are the two accounts. Now imagine a situation, as of now we don't have connection established between Saviynт and end application. If the connection was established, there are two ways to provisioning. First is, if you mention instant provisioning, as soon as the task will created, it will provision. Other thing is via job. What happens is we can have to go to utility. There's something called as WS retry task. WS retry, which is provisioning job. What it does is this job will trigger, or this job actually helps us to create account from or provision access to an accounts. Come here, go to edit trigger. Here you have to specify name of the security system. Our name is payroll management system. Just submit it and then run it. As soon as you run this job, the account will get provision from Saviynт to end application. Okay, you got the point, right? After approval, yes, it will move to pending task. If the instant provisioning is on, it will provision directly. If it's not, then you have to run this job. Then accounts will be provision. Since now we don't have any accounts, so what I can actually do is let me complete it manually. And also I'm manually completing this thing. I just wanted to show you that how the account will get created, how it will look. The account got, now let's look at the completed task. Now the task was completed. Usually we don't do it manually. We have to run the job to do it, but for demo purpose, I'm just doing it. Let's see at one task also what happened to our request. It was payroll management system. Come here, search. You get these two access, and the task is status completed. And sometimes what happens is provisioning fails. For example, we need 10 attributes to provision account at the target application. Just an example. And we don't have all the mandatory attributes. Then obviously the provision will not take. For example, for Facebook account to have, you need your email ID, first name and last name. These are the on date of birth. These are mandatory field. For example, you are provisioning account for Facebook using Saviynт. We gave only 3 attributes: first name, last name, date of birth. We didn't give email, so it should not provision obviously because you didn't provide what was the mandatory attribute. Then a task will be remain in the state only, and you can actually it will show you the error as well why it's not happening. Status will be a failed, something like this, and in the state in the comments you can see a provisioning comments, you can see why it's failing. This is something which you can see here, that why it's failing, what's happening, and these things you can actually see here. So now I have manually provisioned it, and since let's see what happened to our target application. Let's go here, identity repository. Let's go to the security system, and I told you all the accounts mapped to this system comes under that section, right? That's the payroll management. And let's see all the accounts. See, this user account got created, and let's open this account. You can see all the accounts within the Saviynт. And the account, you can see these are the various accounts. These are security system. This was I created this account. It shows manually created. So what happens is now I manually created. Once I run the import job, then status will get updated to active after the import job. But as of now, I just created manually. That's what it says. The status is manually provisioned. So this is how we create account using ARS. Now let's cover the part of dynamic attribute, which is the security system. Payroll management. Okay, there's something called as dynamic attribute. What is dynamic attribute? There are 2 ways in Saviynт using which we can pull information. First is from users table. Because we are provisioning account, we basically need input from the users or user input. And if I click this profile, I have all these values. So what I can do, I can pull, or I can get for provisioning account. Actually, I can take value from user using these values. For example, user.firstname will give me the first name of the user. Similar display name give me display name of the user. So this is there. But there can be certain needs in which what I need certain inputs from the user, because all these values didn't provide me the kind of value I needed to provision that account. For that, we use dynamic attributes. As the name suggests, these are the dynamic attributes. Let's go to security system, and all these are endpoint specific configurations. So we'll come here, we'll go to payroll management, we'll go to dynamic attribute. Here we'll create action, create dynamic attribute. So these are dynamic attributes. Let's say I want edu1. I want person's level of education information. For that, usually it's account, because we are requesting account. If you're entitlement owner, you have to select this. For role, we have to select this. If you're requesting a service account, you have to select this option. But let's not worry about these options. 99% you'll be using account. Let's see cloud, because it's a request for new account. So basically it specifies what kind of request do we need. Label is what should be the friendly name. So I need graduation. No, sorry, let's say school information. School name is something which I need input from the user. Attribute, okay, this is the concept. Actually, attribute basically group is actually help to group related information. For example, if you ever, so you have filled certain forms when you're requesting from a simple example. Let me tell you how it could be. Let's select this. So this is a form. Okay, this form can have certain things. It can be education information. That's a simple example so that you understand. Education information. Similarly, personal information. These are the 2 informations, right? And it makes sense to have all the educational information under one tab, right? Drag it down. Then let's not worry about it. Or let me create a new one only. So this is the form in which we are getting input from user to enter basically 2 things. First is personal information for the user, personal info, And second one is educational information. And this comes under one form only, one form, which is details, right? So let's see certain things. For personal information, I need certain informations which are related to that person's, obviously, as the name says, personal information. It can be first name and last name. And for educational information, I can need information for school, undergrad, postgrad. So it makes sense to club the personal information under personal information part and education under these three in the educational group. So group basically specified where the value should be clubbed together. For example, this, I'll say educational detail. Let's say that educational details is the a group name. Order index. Order index basically used to specify the relative numbering. For example, when you're taking information from a person, it's always a good idea to have a person input first name first and then the last name, because that's the logic, right? If you want to get the user first name and last name, there's something which you will order index. Order index basically specifies how we want to display certain attributes, and it's a relative field. For example, if it's -2 and other is 2, -2 will come before 2. So I'll do it, but let's see. Attribute are basically what kind of information we need from the user. If it is string, let's mark string. I'll cover all these in brief, don't worry about it. And default values, what should be default value? Then regex, don't worry about it. Required, editable, these two values. And I'll cover these options as well. It's a very comprehensive thing. It takes time. So I'll explain each and every attribute, but let's see how it looks. Let's go to arrays and request for a new user for this. Request for others. Okay, this person, I've already requested with this person. Let's request with this person. You can see this value came where it's asking us to input the value. You see, right? School name came under educational detail column. Now let me get another attribute. Attribute name is f name. Just an example. It can be anything as per the requirement. And similarly, it can be for account. Account label can be personal details. Personal details. Group could be sorry. This will be group. This is first name, and this is also a type of string value. Let me request this page. You see, two columns came. This is non-editable and non-required. Non-editable because I didn't mark this as editable, and that was coming like this. And let's place it under the same group and let's see what happens. So this is educational details, right? Let's place under the same group. Let's see what happens. So I want to show you the concept of groups here. If I go here, click here, personal details. The group is educational details, and let's mark it as 3, or 0 is also fine because it's a relative marking, right? And let's mark it as editable. Update. Go to request access and let's see. See, it came under same heading, educational details. Both are there. School name first, first name last. If you want to change the position of first name, since it's a relative marking, let's make it as -10. So first name should come before -10. See, first name came before education detail. You got the concept of dynamic attributes. If we need input from user, then we leverage dynamic attributes. Let's look at certain options. There could be number is you're only able to write numbers. Boolean is true, false. Enum is basically drop down value. So you can say either yes, for example, you write yes or no. Let's see what happens. And the yes no enum is basically it will give you sorry, and the first we can see it's yes no, two values came, right? Because we specified enum as yes no, so enum is that. Similarly, there is enum is single select, multi select from list. Enum you can select only one value. If you say multiple select from list, then you can select multi values. As of now, you can see that you can select only one value, but some multi select you can select multiple values. Similarly, we have this SQL query. You can write SQL query. For example, if you want to pull in, you can, if you want to show all the list of the user within the Saviynt, you can use SQL query to give user these values. Similarly, multi-select, single select from SQL query. Checkbox is checkbox, date is date type. These are certain attributes which you can configure here. An account column is on which account the value is stored. For example, if I mention here custom property 5, I'm just giving an example, custom property 5. So whatever inputs give here, after provisioning, that record will be stored on account level at custom property 5. We open here, whatever the user get the input there for that dynamic attribute, that will be stored here in the custom property 5. As now it's not populated there, it will populate it here, the custom property 5. Now the parent attribute mapping. It's a very complicated concept. It will take me time for you to understand how it's done, but basically what happens is, a simple example could be, let's consider this example that you want user to basically you want to show mapping. For example, a simple example could be education level. You want to ask what is the level of education. If it's only high school, you just want to give a field so that user can input high school number. If the person is undergraduate, you want to give two fields, enter school of high school and undergrad college. If person is graduate, three options should come: school, high school, undergrad, and postgrad. There's something we should do here. It's a very complicated thing. I've already configured for one account. So let me show you that account, and I'll explain you how it's done. Let me see if it's still there. Secret system I did for Fin1. Oh, I removed it. I'll have to create it again. Let's see. Show test here. Okay. So let me show you how to do it and what exactly this does. Test 2 is there. Let's create something as test 3. Let me show you the concept first, and then I'll show you what is. Sorry, is it test 1? Should be mapping. Let's see. There are three things. Test 1, specify this thing, and test 2. This one mapping. Okay. So let me tell you what I mean by this. So let's go for this Fin1 application, and let's show you what does this parent-child mapping is used for. It's a difficult concept to grasp, but let's see. Not that difficult, but yeah. So first step, if it's yes, you see only this attribute came, the other one went away. If I select no, this option came, the other one went away. So why we need this I'll placing in the same group, it will be easier for you to understand. So you can see based on our selection, we're actually managing whether certain value should come or not. So this is how we use the child parent mapping. This is called as child attribute mapping. So let me show you again once more, so you're able to understand it better. Right. Oh, sorry. So I did something wrong. Group should be test 3. Should okay. So you can see here, we have certain this. So if I select first number as yes, the last name came, but the other field went away. If I select no, this field came, the other field went away. So this is the use of parent attribute mapping. Based on the selection on this field, which is parent, I am dictating or managing the value of other two attributes. This is called a parent attribute mapping. This is not very extensively used, but certain application, like I worked with one of the clients which was this extensively it was used. So let me show how to configure it. For the parent attribute, from where we are going to manage these mapping, in the action string you mentioned this, and how the action string actually works is, it's a very simple. Specify show, what action should take. Show test2, which attribute to show if the selection in this attribute is yes. Similarly, hide test2, which is the attribute, this attribute, test2, yes. Test2 is this attribute, last name. So show test2 if the selection here is yes, hide test2 if selection here is no. Show test3 if selection is no, hide test3 if selection is yes. So this is how action string is done, and there's something which is predefined. Show, then 3 hashes, then name of the dynamic attribute, then value for which this value should show up, then 3 underscores, then hide. There's something which is defined by Saviynт. We don't do it, but this is the action string which we use. And this is how we do parent attribute mapping. So in the parent attribute, we have to just mention the action string. In the child attribute, which is test2 and test3, you can see here. All you have to do is come here and just say what is the parent attribute is test1 and what action is mapping. This is by default. Mention mapping and action is this here. And let's take it as okay. And similar so test3 mention that parent is test1 and mapping is mapping. So that's one, and that's how the selection is. This is how it is managed. So selection here, if it's yes, so how the action string will be read. I selected yes in that my parent attribute, then it will show test1, it will hide no. I said test2, it hide test2 and show test3. And show test3. Sorry, it should be test2. Sorry. So show test2 when value is hide test3 when value is no. Show test3 when it's no. This is something. That's how it should be. So this is how. This is the concept parent-child mapping, and this is how it's taken care of. So basically, show what value do you need to show. I know it's a very difficult or it's not a very easy concept to grasp, but I hope you to understand it, and how to read this is most important. If the selection is yes, show test2 attribute. If selection is no, sorry, whatever it was initially, I by mistake I changed it. It should be like this only. Sorry, it should be like this. If the action is yes, show test2. If the value is no, hide test2. Similarly, if the value in the drop down is no, show test3. And if the value is yes, hide test3. And there's something, and that's how we manage the mapping. Do you get it? It's just use of parent attribute mapping. Okay, perfect. Let's save it, and that's how. And this is something that's all about ARS. That's how we manage access, how populate various values, and then we configure it. Well, let's see what all we cover. ARS done. We covered ARS. We covered user groups. Now look at the SAV role part of it. What is SAV role? So SAV role basically means Saviynt roles. In the Saviynт also, certain user need certain type of accesses, right? One end user, sorry, might just need access to approve or reject access. That person don't need anything beyond that. If that person is able to come, and then after so yeah, how it should do is end user should just able to come and view a place request for himself, and maybe place the request for others, view what all accesses that he or she has. That's about it. So an administrator needs to have access to all the modules so that that person can actually view Saviynт, debug, make configuration. Similarly, there's something called as manager. The manager should be able to view what all access he has, what all access the person who are working from him has. Something can be auditor. Auditor should be able to view reports, and I'll cover reports as well. So these are certain access that a person has, right? This is something which is managed using SAV rules. SAV rules are Saviynt rules. Let's come here, open. Let's refresh it. Come here, open Saviynт. Go to SAV roles and SAV role. So these are roles, and let's say create a SAV role. Create a new SAV role. We are creating a new SAV role. Role anything manager, for example. Let's create this. This is the nomenclature we follow. Role should be there and underscore manager. If you apply this role manager, let's see what happens. It'll throw you an error. SAV role must start with role underscore. So this is the nomenclature which Saviynт asks us to follow. Role underscore manager. Let's create this role. So this is the role which we created, and let's see, these are the various options. The main options to worry about is access. What kind of access that person needs? Come here, add a new access. These are the list of all the access a person can have within Saviynт. Admin, if I say connection, you're able to view connection. If I say configuration, you're able to view configuration bit of it. Now come here, and you can see all the different configurations which a person needs. You can come here and say, let's say analytics. Let me search analytics and let's see what comes. Search. So menu shows where you can see. So menu is basically nothing but these top values. Admin, you can all these options come under admin. Analytics, these options come under analytics. Reports, the person can view reports. Analytics, that person can view this thing, and then request. So I'm just trying to show you here how you give certain access to a person based on SAV rule. So this is there. For example, ARS person can view request, home, all these things, and then save it. So this person will have role manager, will have these all access within Saviynт. You can just select to remove it, or you can add new here. Create request home options. Let's see what is this create request home options. So these are the options which are visible on the front page. Under ARS, these are all options. And then analytics basically related to analytics, workflow is related to workflow. What all do we need to have? Add new workflow. If you are requesting, if someone comes and requests this SAV role, what workflow should be followed? So this is the concept of SAV role. SAV role basically gives the access to a person within the Saviynт. Under user shows you what all users have access to this SAV role. You can come here, you can add user who have access to this role. Okay, just come and say this person have access to this role. And then access is what kind of access that person needs. Create access is what kind of access that person can have. So I have a role admin. So let me tell you and show you how this option can actually help you. So I have these three options. Let's see. Let's remove all. Let's give this person only one access, and let's see what happens. It gets auto save. If I come here, and if I go to ARS page, see, I can see just one option. Initially there were four options, right? Request access, request access for others. Now only one option is coming. I don't have access anymore. Similarly, if I click here, request access for others, if I come and refresh here, I can have certain access. See? So the home page basically, this request create home option give access here. But in general, all the Saviynт related access are handled using this access button. So this is briefly don't worry about these options. You can always look into what these options are, what they do. I haven't used all these options after working. To whom for request. So you can see this SAV role, what can happen, whom to request. That person can request access for all, or if this person has this SAV role, he can just request access for self or request access for all. For whom the role of similarly, these options, request history can view request history for all, self-made request. If you mark it here, then person can view the request just made for himself. That person cannot see request rate for other people. If this is all, then the person is allowed to be request for all the requests in the system. So these are configured here. So the main idea here is, if we want to manage the kind of access a person has within Saviynt, this is managed using SAV role. Mainly two tabs are used: what kind of access this role has and what kind of create home access is in. And for more granular options, we visit this and make configurations here. So this is the idea of the SAV role. You get it? And as I showed you, right, by changing these options,
Yes.
how it changes.
It displays on home page.
Yeah, home page. For other approvals, it will be this thing only. For other approval like analytics and workflow, this will be handled, from here, access here. For home, you leverage this. For others, we leverage this. You can see I have all that. So I can see everything as of now. But I remove anything from here, I'll not be able to view that. Okay, so let's see this. If I remove this part, let's see what happens. If I remove, what happened? If I come here, role admin, if I go to access, and I go to access, and let me remove this admin mein connection wala part. Let's see what happened. Admin mein I've removed connection wala thing. Action should be remove access. See, right here, remove access. So administrator, I remove connection bit. So connection got removed from here. Now let's see what happens. If I come here, I refresh here, I go to administrator, and if I come here, see, connection list is not there. Now connection is not coming. Did you see?
Yes.
Connection is not coming. So that is how you, or rather we manage. And if I want to give the task admin access connection, I'll give that person connection, and then this, let's see, that person, that connection will come. So this is the purpose of SAV role. Now connection is coming here. See, so these are basically used because not all type of user, a simple user will no need to, that person should not be able to view all these rights, right? Because they don't need to configure the connection and all these things. That person, and usually what happens is, in case of end user, we only give certain things that person can access. First, the person should be able to view what kind of access accounts that person has and what kind of entitlement that person has, and similarly come to ARS and request access for others, for himself, and view history of his records, what happened. Only these things that person can view. This is something which we can configure and can give access. And how we assign SAV role, either we can manually assign, as we did, go to SAV role, add the user, or while creating users only, or while importing user, we can have that SAV role connection there. So let's go to connection, and you can see there is, if I open this connection, there's something called as default SAV role. So as soon as the users are created within Saviynt, that person will have that SAV role, and that person will by default get that SAV role. So this is this is the user default SAV role. Let's hover it over. Let's see what's over. I have access to all default connections, so that's there. And similarly, we can specify downsteps as well. Default user role. Default SAV role can be assigned to user that gets imported only for user import. So whenever user import is there, that person will access to the SAV role, whatever we specify here. So this is the concept of SAV role, how we assign SAV role. Two ways to assign it manually using roles. Second is assign it using connections, or whenever you are importing user. Analytics is basically used for report. Before I jump that, sorry, to run to trigger emails, right? I just forgot to tell you, that came to mind. To trigger email, we have to run something called as email history job. As in the other case, right? So to trigger emails from Saviynt, we have to come here, and something we have email history, email history job. You have to create instance for this job and run this job, and then run it. Then emails will trigger, or we can schedule it to run after 5 minutes, after 10 minutes, and that's how we do it. And then only the email get triggered, right? Any email. So after, like in the workflow, we were leveraging emails, right? The email will get triggered after we run the email history job. Okay, now let's come and let's see here. Analytics. Analytics is nothing but it is run for reporting purposes. What is the purpose of reporting? Why do we need reporting? For example, there could be a scenario in which we need a list of all the inactive users within the system. One of the examples. Then just come here, configure report, run the report, and then the person administrator can see what are the inactive users in the Saviynt. Other system could be we want to see users have access to certain applications and whose status is inactive. So it basically depends on the business requirement, but uh, it's basically used for reporting purposes. So there's something which I created. Let's not worry about it, but let's get a new report as well. Analytics. Create a new. It's basically we use SQL query. We majorly leverage this, right? SQL query. It can be test report for okay, and you can say and status is what is the status of this. It can be active, inactive. Active report is something which are run when it's inactive. You cannot run it. Category, a certain category usage is just for a user's purpose. We can do anything from that. Similarly, if it's for ARS, if you want to generate request ARS system, we use it for provisioning. We use provisioning report for certification kind of report. We use certification type. But let's consider users for this example and let's see how it happens and what it happens. Risk. What is the risk of this report? If it's a very high sensitive report, it's high, similarly medium and low. This is reasoning. Allowed action is what kind of action a person can take from report. As of now, for our first example, let's move everything. Let's get a simple report, and then we can actually view and see what happens. Now, since it's a SQL query based report, let's write it. Select. It's just an example. I'm just showing what you select first name, comma last name from users where one second. My voice is gone, man.
YouTube.
You are just write SQL query, right? Users is the table name, and first name and last name is respected. And let's say we limit our search to limit 5. Just a simple example. You can have a query to do anything, right? Preview will actually give you a little bit of this. And let's commit a mistake by our knowledge. Let's move this. Let's see what happens in preview. You'll get an error. Not it's not coming. Usually a pop-up comes up stating that there is a issue in your SQL query. Not coming now. It usually does. That's the preview. It comes with our details of files. So let's see create. So these are the columns which you want to so let's mark one as filterable. Let's mark other as non-filterable. Submit it. Let's go to configuration part. Let me tell you. There are 3 ways to run a report. First, you can schedule a report. Like there can certain requirement is basically to run a report as to run it daily or run it monthly or weekly. You can specify under schedule. Run it hourly, run it daily, run it weekly on Saturday, specify time you want to run it. At that point in time, this report will run. A simple example could be every 5 minutes. Submit after every 5 minutes, the job will run. You can see schedule here is written here. And after 5 minutes, right? So I can remove the schedule here. You can do it, and then you can run from here. Run manually. After coming here, just click on run now. Total number of records saved 5. And view file analytics history. This option here also. And this is the report. It ran once. Click here to see the report. See, these are the users. And I show you for one option, for last time I removed the filterable. For this option, I mark filterable. Yes, so let's see, filter. You can actually, it helps you to select the values, select the users. You can come here, filter, let's say, just say filter, apply filter to John, only John record came here. So you can apply certain filters as well. And here we can actually export it, export the Excel. If you want to export that file, it got downloaded here. We don't have Excel, application installed in this instance. We can have CSV import as well. Let's see how it views. CSV import is there. You can view here. First name, last name, John Adams is the report which came here because I restricted the field to that user. If I select all and then export and run CSV, you'll have details of all the users. See, it comes here. If you use the proper CSV reader, it will show you in the correct format. But this is pretty much about reports, how we configure it, how we run it. There are certain options, and analytics name is basically the name of the analytics. And second, analytics query is you have to specify the query. It's not coming here. Let's see. Okay, name of the status queries. So the query description is very different. Descriptions are people able to understand us. Categories, what should be the category? Access requests is analytics that belongs to ERS. Then information refreshes, basically analytics is looking for stale information or on refresh. Whenever you refresh information, this is triggered. Usage is for users, non-personal accounts is for basically service accounts when it's used. Deprovisioning is to keep track of provisioning, deprovisioning, and certificate to keep track of certification. We use certification. These are the categories. We can create a query which works with certification. Similarly, these are the various categories, but most of the purpose, 90% you'll use categories usage just for understanding of the usage. Okay. And then external connection should be somewhere. Once again, application. What is the application? Application endpoint for this. If you want to create it just for one application, you can just mention the name of the application, and then it can just create for that application. That's about application allowed action. What do you want to take action? For example, if you want to revoke access, you can do it using analytics, except then you can do it using this. These are the so if you make a report actionable, the action, that means a person should be able to take action from the report itself, then we use these options. So far in my career, I just configured one actionable report, and I worked on around 50 reports, and only one actionable report was created. And let's get a one report in which we create action. Let's see how it seems. Let's say, for example, I'll just show you where it is visible in the end application. Select first name from users where limit DSC risk load started design view. Something wrong with the SQL query. Let me check. Select first name from users limit. Let's remove DSC. It's not recognizing this as a keyword. Yeah, it was the reason create. And I've showed actionable, right? So whenever you go to analytics history, it will run the report. History, test, run now. Go to view history. Action button comes here, right? What do you want to do? Accept this person. So basically it's for endpoint mapping. Whenever you want to, accept and revoke access from when in Saviynt, that's how this option comes, and that's how it comes like. This is the purpose of actionable analytics. Let's create actionable analytics during our next class, and let's take it from here. But this is the overview of analytics, how it gets created, what are the various options. So this pretty much sums analytics part. In the next part, we'll look a little bit about analytics, and the next class we'll jump into rules, which is very important concept, which is one of the most used uh, modules within Saviynt. So these two are the heavily used modules within the Saviynt. We'll cover these two parts, and then we'll look for and jump to the other parts.